Hello folks, good evening, welcome to this week's Live from Ian's studio, and I have a new rig here for all the live streaming, so hopefully things will work without any problems this time. I believe the microphone is working. Yes, I can see the sliders going on there, so that one's not happening, that problem we had last week. I've double checked everything. So let's see how far we can get in before we have a technological challenge, as opposed to one of me not being able to speak. Right, let's move on with the show. And yeah. Right, okay, so welcome. The theme this week is we're continuing our look at image organization, and I promised to show you a way to automate that organization, which is one of the things I'm going to do. I'm also pleased to have the first part of our photographer showcase with photographer David Jones on the stream tonight, pre-recorded of course in these days of social separation and a lockdown and all that. So for those who may not know about these shows, I can see some of the familiar faces in the chat already, but if we've got anyone new watching, let me just explain. These are weekly shows every Sunday night at 7:30, new topic and new information. A good chance for folks to have a chat in the live chat as well. It's important as photographers we keep that communication going, and we can't have that chat over a shoot. So here's a chance in the live chat alongside these streams to just catch up with your fellow photographers. Yeah, I keep the streams in full on YouTube for a while. The aim is meant to be just over a week, but it seems to be a little bit longer than that. I'm a bit behind on the editing on there. Then they'll replace with cut down versions, and the full versions get moved into my academy for my academy members. I do also post extracts from them onto YouTube, so you may have seen some sections which are familiar appearing on there with intros and outros. They tend to be cleaned up a little bit in terms of bits that I can cut out. I do, so it's a much tighter edit on those. So yeah, you've got the chance to watch things on there as well. Please ask questions in the chat. Otherwise, my live chat sections get very boring when I get to it at the end and go, right, let's have a look at the chat. And there's nothing there. Oh, well, right. So please ask questions. If you want to submit questions during the week, then feel free to do that by email. My email address is contactme@ians-studio.co.uk. It can be found on my webpage. You can also contact me through Facebook and all the usual sort of channels. On that. If you're watching this on the replay, please comment to say that you're watching, just so that I know that people are seeing it on replay. My usual thing about helping with the live stream, please remember to subscribe if you already have, and I suspect all the regulars have done. I really do appreciate that. It does mean a great deal to me to know that you're supporting the live stream in this way. Because that will help my visibility with YouTube. Comments help as well, so if you're able to leave a comment, not just on this video but on some of the other videos, that will also help. And likes, thanks for all the likes, folks. We've been getting more over the last couple of weeks. It's gone up, and this month we're only halfway through the month, and I've already had more likes this month than any other month, so thank you for doing that. On there, and for those who are sharing the links, thank you, and everyone else, get sharing them. No, if you are able to, if there's a place where you can share and tell people about these live streams, I really would appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm still looking for images for the 3-minute Lightroom challenge. We've got a little we have a little number from Michael, but I don't want to do Michael's images week in, week out on there. I want to put some others in from other people first on that. If you want to take part in the photographer's showcase, once you see what it's like tonight, again, let me know and I'll send you the questions for that. So what have we got on the show this week? Well, we're starting with news. We're doing the image organization, as I said, and that will be a demonstration within Lightroom on how we do that. We've got the photographer's showcase with David. The 3-minute edit challenge is an image from Michael. I can see Michael's in the chat. Yeah, we've got a good number in the chat tonight. So Ron, Michael, Terry, Gary, Rick's back on there watching. Hi, Rick. Peter from France is in there. Stuart as well. Great to have you aboard. Oh, and Kev as well. Yeah. Nice to see you all in there. I know I have a few regulars who can't join in the chat. Just so that you know, because I have had this question come up a couple of times, if you want to be involved in the chat, you need to log in to YouTube through your Google account, and then you should be able to chat and take part in that. Right. Yeah, the live Q&A. I've already seen one question come in. I'll have a look at that when I play in the first video on there. So what's been going on this week? Well, if you've been keeping an eye on my YouTube channel, you'll have found out that it's been busy. I have been posting one video a day for, I think, nearly a fortnight now. So what have we got up there? We've got a whole range of things. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we've got a travel log up there from Tortola in the British Virgin Islands, and by a really weird coincidence, the image I used on the cover of that actually sold as a stock image on the same day that I posted the travel log. I think it's purely coincidence on there. We have got a tutorial about photographing waterfalls, which was in Canada, which is why Benny is dressed as a Canadian Mountie, if anyone was wondering. That's the reason for his outfit. So Michael, no, not due. Actually, I'm not quite sure the reference, due south. I'd have said Canada was north. If it's something else, let me know. On there, yeah, we've got one all about should we work for free. That's an extract from a previous live stream if you didn't see it. So lots of videos on there. There should be something, whatever your interest is in photography, within that on the channel. So right, moving on. Yeah, my blog post this week was continuing on the 7 deadly sins of photography, and we moved over to pride and how the photographic sin of pride can affect our work as photographers and the images that we produce. So if you want to have a look at that, head over to www.ians-studio.co.uk and you can have a read of that there. It's the blog post with the peacock on there. Apart from the fact that the peacock looks particularly proud in that image, there is a saying, isn't there? Proud as a peacock. That's the... right, I've just spotted in the chat Michael saying it was a Canadian TV crime show. So yes, he had spotted that it was a Mountie outfit. Time on the clock is wrong. Clock? What clock? Right, no, you'll have to explain that one to me, I'm afraid, on there. There is a slight delay, by the way, folks, between me speaking and you hearing me. Tend to be about 30 seconds, so we may be slightly out on things like that, but I'm not quite sure what you refer to on there. Right, sorry, carry on. Stop being distracted here. Let's get on with the show. I've been told I waffle and that I need to keep these shows short, so I'm speaking quickly, trying to get through the information quickly. I'm failing miserably. And yes, Peter, we do have sound. Thank you for that. Right, okay, so 3-minute Lightroom challenge. well, you know the score by now. It's 3 minutes to edit an image, which we haven't seen beforehand. I do it, and Rick Bradbury does it. And if you want to submit, please do. It'd be nice to have some which aren't model images. We've had a lot of model ones. I'd love to see some landscapes or some other genres of images to work with on there. So we have, first of all, Rick's edit tonight. So let me get this going.
Hello and welcome to another 3-minute Lightroom edit challenge. My name's Rick Bradbury. I'm recording this separately ready for Ian's live stream in a couple of days' time on Sunday. And today we are looking at, I've not hidden the film strip, my bad, an image from Michael. Thank you very much for sending these in, Michael. You know, I know you sent quite a few in, so we'll hit yours in future shows, no doubts. But let's jump into Lightroom and take a look at this image. So let's start the 3-minute timer. There we go. And we will head over to the image. Right, now the image is straight into Lightroom, so it's reset, nothing's been applied. It's been shot on a Nikon D810, 125th of a second, standard f11, oh, not f8, Rebel, ISO 100, on a 24-70 at 2.8 at 70mm, which is the right end of the lens to use. So let's take a look. First thing first is enable profile correction, and you can see the change that the profile applies there. There we go. Get rid of noise reduction because you don't need it at ISO 100, Lightroom. And let's get off Adobe Color because it sucks as a profile. There we go. Right, I'm going to increase the brightness and global contrast first. I'm going to go with probably a black and white edit on this. So whilst the highlights are looking quite hot at the moment, that doesn't matter. So let's boost the shadows a little bit on the blacks. Looking at this, it's been lit with quite a contrasty light. It's not super hard, but it is quite hard. Beauty dish by the look of it, looking at the catch light and the characteristics of it. Right, let's see what we can do with this. We'll hit black and white, and we will just pump up the Kelvin a little bit. So I like the black and whites to be nice and contrasty, a little bit brighter on the highlights without losing detail, not getting any warnings in there. If you printed it in certain materials or certain ways, then yeah, you'd lose this, but most things are going on the web these days. And just a little bit up on the darks, and then we'll hit the black and white channels. We don't want to go too dark with that or too light. Just a little bit more there. And let's see, that should be good. So I'm going to go masking, detail, little bit of sharpening. It's a nice and sharp image as it is. And just a little, oops, not that much texture. And a little bit of dehaze, probably not that much to be honest with you. And have I got time to get rid of these sensor marks, whatever they are. There we go. And that could probably do with just a little bit more on the shadow side. And we are good to go. Nice sharp image. Nice black and white. Boom. Hey, there we go. And there's the timer. Shush. Right. Let's go back to Lightroom. So that is my 3-minute edit.
Thank you, Rick, for your edit on there. We'll come up with my edit in a short while. So let's gonna move on. Right, yeah. Questions and answers, Q&A. I've had one question come in so far from Gary Platt, who is asking about focus stacking software. Yeah, so please any further questions, get them into the live chat for me. If you're watching on the replay, send them to me by email or in comments on here, and I'll deal with them next time. But this one I can deal with straight away. Yeah, focus stacking. I use a little known piece of software for that does a pretty good job, actually. It's called Adobe Photoshop. Yeah, I use the built-in functions within there to do it. It takes a little bit of working out. You need to auto-align the images first, and then you can actually do the stacking. Also need to give a little bit of thought to how you actually shoot the images first. Gary, do you have images that you've already shot for focus stacking, or is this something that you're looking to try and do? But let me know a little bit more information, and I'll perhaps come back to this in the second part of the live Q&A. And to everyone else, would you, if I was to do a live demonstration of focus stacking as one of the live streams, is that something that would be of interest to you? Let me know in the comments or in the live chat, and if there is interest, I'll schedule that for one in the future, because I think it's quite an interesting topic. But what I find interesting and what the rest of the world finds interesting are two completely different things. You only need to look at my YouTube stats to prove that. Right, so that's the start of the answer, which is all about using Photoshop to do it. It does a pretty good job, Gary, on there. Oh, right, okay. I'm just having a look at the questions in the chat. Michael saying he has a question: would I ever consider faking Rembrandt lighting, considering how I missed it slightly in the shot? Right, yeah, Michael, whose image that we've just seen Rick do the edit on, would like to know, would I fake Rembrandt lighting? Absolutely not. Shall I tell you the reason why I would never fake it? Because I actually don't like it. I'm not a fan of Rembrandt lighting. I'll teach it, but that white triangle, I find it a distraction. I know people like Rembrandt lighting, and I know it's a classic form of lighting, but for me, I'm not a big fan of it. So why would I bother faking something I don't like? So in answer to it, no, I wouldn't. Right, what else have we got here in the chat? Gary asking, what's the best way to create the famous Cartier-Bresson border in a photograph? White external border with an internal black line. Ooh, right. Best way to do it. I can think of several ways of doing it. The one way of doing it is there are plugins in Lightroom which will allow you to add borders to images with it, or you just have to do it in Photoshop. It's just easier. Extend the canvas and stick a couple of layers below, or one layer below for the white, and then a stroke for the black. If it's what I think you're driving at on there. There might be one worth looking at in the future. Let me just make a note of it. Border question, and I might be able to put that one in a future one to answer. Right. Michael saying, be interested in looking at getting into macro photography for a change of pace. Yeah. Bob Tovey is interested in a focus stacking demo. Yep, okay, we've got one person. And Rick likes the triangle, but can cause the eyes to darken. Yeah, I know other people like it, I just don't with that Rembrandt lighting. Here's a personal thing. Right, moving along. Oh, yeah. If you have questions during the week, feel free to send them to me at the email address up there. Contact me at ians-studio.co.uk on that. Right. This is still part of Q&A, but it's also part of what I'm going to do, because it came in last week or a couple of weeks ago as a question, which is all about image organization. I started to talk about it last week, and we went through naming conventions and file conventions last time. So that's almost a prerequisite for what I'm about to talk about. So if you're watching this on the replay and haven't seen last week's live stream, it's worth going in, having a look at that. And for those of you who are currently watching live, if you missed last week, just sort of file away what I'm doing now. And if it's of real interest to you, go and have a look at last week's as well, because that will set the background to what we're trying to achieve here. Now, I am going to go through this fairly quickly. And I make no apologies for that, because it's not something you're going to be able to follow as I'm doing it live. The steps will take longer than that. If this is something you want to follow, then watch it on the replay and then just pause it at each stage, do the same steps, and you'll go through it sensibly. So if I go through it fairly quickly, you'll know the overall picture, then go back, watch it again, and do it step at a time on there. Now, I just need to change over various screens on here to get what I want. So goodbye chat, hello Lightroom, and yeah, we have Lightroom. Right, wonderful. Okay, so what I also need is a couple of windows on here. Right, now, not that one. I need to change my folder back to where it should be, which, oh, not on the history. It's fine. Right, okay, so which one have I got open? Right, we need my demos folder open here, which is on my L drive. Lightroom training, Lightroom essential documents, Lightroom training, that's the one. Oh, come on, where is it? Right, here we go, unsorted images, that's it. Right, okay, let me explain the problem that we've got here. I'm going to go full screen on there, so take me out of the picture for the time being. Here's the problem, and I've tried to simulate the problem that the people who are asking the question had got, and that is lots of folders with all sorts of odd images in with different names, duplicated files. I've got here, for example, a folder called Gateshead, but inside there I've got images from all over the place. And last time we talked about filing things under date. Now these clearly aren't organized under dates, because on the same day I wasn't in Nottingham, Gateshead, Blackpool and Stockport. So everything is a real mess here. I've organized by theme, and I want to change it to organized by date. So how do we do it? Right, well, the first thing I would recommend on doing something like this is get yourself a brand new empty drive. It just makes life so much easier if you can start with a clean slate on this rather than anything else. And now I've got well, it's only a small drive for demo purposes on here, but as you can see, I've called it Lightroom and it's completely empty. And my advice with this drive is you start off by creating just 3 folders at the top. So I'm going to do that. Wasn't the one. So new folder, and I'm going to call one Lightroom Lightroom DB. New one called Photos, and new folder Photos, photo output. Right. What those three folders are, that is the basis of all my organization within for photos. The only one that's really key to what we're about to do now is the one called Photos. And the aim is that all your master images live under that one folder. I've created the folder called Lightroom DB because I'm going to need a Lightroom database to do this reorganization. Now, this still applies even if you're not going to be a Lightroom user. You can use the demo version of Lightroom to do this organization because you've got a month free use of it. You can use it to do that and then get rid of Lightroom, and you've got everything organized in the right folders. So I know the two people who are asking me the question on this, Christina and Karina, neither of them are likely to be Lightroom users, but you can use Lightroom to do the organization for you and then use whatever other software you want. So the Lightroom DB just is a place to stick that database, but it's also, if you are going to use Lightroom, a place to put it. Now, the only thing I would say on that is I don't normally recommend having your Lightroom database on an external disk drive. Even with the fast processors the fast communications of USB 3 and all that, you really need it on something much faster than that because it gets hammered with it. But it will work. If it's a USB 3 and something like an SSD as I've got on here, you'll get away with it, but it's not a recommendation on there. The third folder, Photos Output, the reason I always create that is because there are times when you want to get images out of Lightroom. For example, if you want to put a white border around with a line around it, but you don't want to file those where your master copies are. We want to keep them separate, and it's important to do that. So this is why I create two folders. Photos, anything in there, once it's in there, it's only ever managed by Lightroom, and I never touch it myself. I let Lightroom do all that for me. Or, in analogy, if you're not using Lightroom, whatever software you're using, that's where you keep your master files in there. You don't just put temporary files in there. So the photo output is just a place where you can dump everything else. So your exports, your temporary files, things you're working on that aren't under the control of Lightroom. So the three folders. So now we've got that, we want to go over to Lightroom. And what I need to do here is I need to create a new database to do this reorganization. So File, New Catalog, and it's asking for a name, and it'll put the window on the wrong screen. So I need to find a folder, and the folder is going to be that D drive, Lightroom database. Let me go full screen so you can see what I'm typing a little bit better. And I am going to call this IMB. Well, I'm going to call it Demo Catalog because I need to distinguish it from all my others. But call it what means something for you, whether it might be a reorganization catalog or whatever. Or if you are reorganizing your images and you want Lightroom to take control, maybe call it your master catalog. And the reason why I say create one rather than using the default will be buried somewhere under your username in the C drive and things like that. I like to have things in places where I know where it is, not buried 53 levels down in a Windows hierarchy. So now it's coming up with the screen. Right, at this point I have no idea whether I'm on full screen or not. Let me go to, yeah, right, you can see me. Let me close. Right, it's asking me about creating some collections. That's because I have various plugins enabled. So I'm just going to get rid of that. It's going to create some updates to the database for me for other plugins. I really didn't want it to do that update to the catalogue, but I've got to let it go. Now that might take a few moments. I don't know. While that's doing that, I'm just going to nip over to chat and see what's going on over there. Whoa, fair bit happening in there while that's happening. On that. Macro. Retouching. Right, okay. So let's minimize that, get back to Lightroom. Right, okay, we've now got this brand new Lightroom catalog with nothing in it. What I need to do now is I need to do two little changes. Well, one change is essential for what we're about to do, or at least essential to consider. The other is something I always do when I create a new catalog. So I'm going over to edit. Let me go full screen again for you. Edit preferences, and it's put that. It keeps putting the dialog boxes on the wrong screen. Right, let's go over general. Right, the one I want to talk about is this option: treat JPEG files next to RAW files as separate photos. And the reason I want to mention this is if you're using this to just reorganize things, you may want it to bring both in and have them both visible within Lightroom. If you shoot RAW plus JPEG, if you want them effectively combined into one item within Lightroom, then leave it as the default. But if you want them as separate ones as you reorganize, it should move both. But that is the option that you need to change. I can't tell you what the right setting is because it depends on your workflow, what sort of images you've got. If you're dealing with just JPEGs or just RAW files, don't need to worry about it. It's only if you shoot RAW plus JPEG. You need to decide before you do the import and the reorganization whether you want them treated as one file or treated as separate files on there. So I'm going to leave them as one. In this demo, I haven't got any RAW files. I'm only using JPEGs for purposes of speed on there. So that's the first setting. The other setting is a catalog-based one, which is edit catalog settings. And again, it's put the dialog box on the wrong screen. And I want to talk about it because it is so important when you create a Lightroom catalog. It's this automatically write changes to XMP. It's effectively a continual backup of all the work that you do. If you don't write out to XMP and you lose the catalog, you have not got any record anywhere other than the catalog of all the edits that you did to your images. Writing it out to XMP means if you get a corrupt catalog, you can re-import those files and you still bring back the changes. You will lose certain other things like virtual copies, but I always recommend having it checked on any catalog that you are going to treat as your main catalog. So that's for if you're going to be carrying on using Lightroom. I recommend having it. There is a slight performance hit from it because it's having to write stuff out to disk all the time. But if you've got a fast disk over a fast connector, then you should be okay with it. But I always have it checked. So I'm going to do that. Right, that's the planning side of this. Now, how are we going to do the organization? How are we going to get all these images organized sensibly by date? We're going to use the import function. So I'm going into import and we get the import dialog box. At the moment, it tries to pick up my iPad, so ignore that. I'm going to navigate to that folder that we looked at earlier, which was here. these unsorted images with all the stuff in. You can see lots in each of those folders. So I'm going to go there, which is on my L drive. Let me just double check that path. It's training Lightroom unsorted images. So training Lightroom unsorted images, and that goes through and it finds all those images, and you'll see there's just under 300 images here with all different sort of names on there, and some of them I've got duplicates in there. Yeah, you can see here, oh no, they're not duplicates, believe it or not. But yeah, we've got duplicates here. We've got a low res and a web res version of the Peacock. So things like that. And we want to consolidate all this together. So what we're going to do is we're going to import. So we've chosen where we're coming from. Let's move over to this side of the column. Again, I'll go full screen. And building the previews. Because I'm not going to be editing in this, all I need is absolutely the minimal version on there. If you're dealing with raw files, and this is going to be your editor, it's normally 1-to-1 on there, but for the purposes of the demo and for the purposes of the fact of just reorganizing, if you're only doing this to reorganize where your files are, just go minimal on there. That's all you'll need. I'm not going to build any smart previews. I don't want to include any duplicates, because if I was running this over multiple times, because I've got images on lots of different disks and in different folders, then I want to avoid any duplicate images coming in where they're absolutely the same. So I would select that. Further down, right, renaming. Now, what we're going to do here, we are going to create a pattern for doing the rename. So I'm going to go into the template and I'm going to say edit. And once I bring that onto the right screen, I'm just going to clear all that on there, and we are going to create a template for doing this. Now, the naming I talked about last week was based on date. So we're going to start with a date on there. I talked about using job codes. For the purpose of this demo, you could put a shoot name in there as a variable, and it would you'd then have to put something in. But because we're trying to automate all this, I'm just going to say my job code is A on this one. On there, if you're not using job codes, just ignore that. I'm going to use a hyphen to separate it. Then my camera ID, I'm going to say G, because that's the code I use for my current camera on there. Now, this next bit is where we need to really give some thought to what comes next. If you are only dealing with your raw files or files straight out of camera, you probably will want to use the image suffix, the last 4 numbers. Suffix? File number suffix, yeah, that's what they call it. Because that ties it back to the very original file in the camera. However, if I was to choose that, then my images aren't all named like that. I've got some with different endings, like low res, in which case it doesn't find that number at the end and it has trouble with it. So I have 2 other options. I could use this file number suffix there. I could put a sequence number in, and I could say a sequence of 4 digits on there, and you can see, we go full screen, you can see up at the top here what that would then start to look like, G401 on that, and that would guarantee a unique ending on there, but it doesn't tie back to anything. The problem with that is if you've got variant images, they're going to end up with different file names because they'll have a different sequence number each. What is perhaps a better way to do it so that you get all the files which are based on the same photo together is to use a time. So I'm just going to take that out, and what I'm going to put in is time based. So I'm going to do hour, and I have to do this bit at a time, second. Oh, I need the G going in there. So I've now got a naming scheme that's going to work for this. I've got date, a job code, which is optional. I've got my camera ID, and I've got a number that's going to be so unique within the shoot because it's based on the time, but it will also pull together all the images next to each other if you organize that were shot at the same time. So I'm going to save that. So that's my naming convention. I could resave it. I'm not going to. As you can see, I've actually already got that saved. So I'm going to say done. So that gives me an example of what it's going to look like on there. Settings. I don't want any settings to apply. I want the settings I want the images exactly as they are. All I'm doing is reorganizing. So let's leave them as they are. And then where are we going to put them? By default, it tries to put these under pictures. And you heard me say last time, you don't want to put anything under pictures because all different software works with that folder. So I'm going to collapse that. I'm going to go over to that drive I set up, and I'm going to say photos. And now I've got a choice to make. How am I going to organize them underneath photos? By date. Now you can see it's just one folder per date on there. That's not necessarily the best way. Well, we want the, oh, sorry, I have just, I closed it. Right, it's the format we want to change. And your choices really depend on how you work. If you do a lot of shoots, you probably want this. So it's year, year, month, and then folder underneath it. If you don't do quite as many, for most people, this is adequate. Go full screen again. So year, and then the full date underneath there. So that's what I'm going to go with for the demo. And you'll see how it now reorganizes everything. It creates the year folders for me and the folder underneath each for each date. So that's pulled them all together in an organized form. So all I need to do now is hit import. And that is going away to do that reorganization for me. Now, it will take a couple of minutes to do it. I can keep an eye on it up at the top here. It should, yep. I'm not sure why it's not showing the bar straight away. There we go. We'll start bringing them in on there. I don't want the address lookup. I'm pausing that. That's one less thing that it needs to try and do on there. It will take about from when I tested it out earlier. It seemed not to be doing anything for ages and ages, and then all of a sudden things started to happen with it. So I'm going to nip over to the chat for a moment and have, whoa, I'm going to go back because it's all suddenly started to happen. And you can see now as it's coming in up at the top here, the progress bar is up there, and down here we've got these individual folders for each date that I've created. So I can start expanding some of these. And what we can see, let's just take an example. I'm going to actually pick a photo here, and I'm right clicking on it. I was hoping for a little menu to come up, which isn't happening. Never mind, I will go into one of the ones down here. That will do for me. Yeah, this will explain what I wanted to explain on it. I had 3 versions of this image, and you can see what it's done with it. Because I was using the time as my serial number on there, it's created one file with the full name, then -2, -3 on there. So those are always going to sit next to each other in the display. So it allows me to pull together where I've got duplicates, and I can then look at them and find out which I want to keep, whether I want to keep all of them or not within there. So, and I can look down on here at the sizes. Right, it's just asked me, do I want an address lookup? No, I don't want an address lookup. I thought I'd just disable you. So I can look at the size on it. This one is 1400 pixels wide, whereas this one, when it catches up with me, is the full resolution version, and then right over the end we should have a low res version. Yeah, we have 800. So you can see how it's pulled all those together into one folder. Now the next thing I would do once they've come in is I would start to do a rename, and I would go through this folder by folder and just add onto it an ending. So for this one that I'm in at the moment is the Amazon River, so rename, and I add, as I described last week, a short tag to make this more readable. So Amazon, and this one is, again, that's more Amazon stuff, so it's more Amazon animals. So Amazon, I'll call it rainforest. I'm not going to bore you by editing all of those through as they come through, because there are literally hundreds of these folders. The one thing that I didn't mention, and I hope this was set right, was that on that import tab was instead of adding, I used the move at the top to move those files over onto the other disk. So now I should be able to, I'm just going to minimize that, go over to the original. Yeah, we can see what's happened now is these folders, the images have all gone from there. So they've all been imported into Lightroom, moved from there. If I look over here under that photos folder, I've now got that structure that we were looking at earlier. So 18, you can see here as I've renamed them, they're now in those folders sensibly. So that's the organization I've got them. If I go into one of these folders, they're physically named sensibly as we discussed last week. So the final step to do is a cleanup, and this is a little trick I want to show you. A little bit of software called delete empty folders, and I've installed it. I've put the link in the text below this YouTube video for where you can download it from. And what that does is, once it's installed, I can right click on any folder and click remove empty directories. Let me go full screen for you, and I say scan, and it goes through and allows me to get rid of any folders that have got nothing in them. And that's going to fail because of where I am in the there. So I'm just going to change my folder on that all the way back up to Lightroom Training. If I now say delete folders, it will go through and delete any of those folders that no longer got anything in it. The reason I do it that way rather than just deleting the hierarchy was because if you got files in any of those folders which weren't images, you don't want to delete the folder. This will detect which ones are actually empty. You can get rid of them. So if you're trying to consolidate a mass of images from all over the place, it's a great way of finding those things that you move the images over to your new location, and then you can get rid of any of the empty folders. Anything that doesn't get deleted through this, you know there's still something in there, and you've got to look at it and decide whether you need to do something with it. So it's a very useful little tool. I use it a lot on there for this sort of work. So unsorted images, it's got rid of everything, so everything's been moved over. I can now delete that folder because it's all been processed and all moved over and organized. Wow, right, okay, so that was the image organization demo. Fairly quick paced going through it. Let's move on because time is against us again as ever. So right, let's so the 3-minute challenge. Let me play in my edit of Michael's image. Then while that's playing, I can catch up on the chat, see what's been going on, and get my breath back ready for the next section. So here we go. Hello, welcome to another Lightroom 3-minute edit challenge. The idea here is I'm provided with an image, sight unseen. I have 3 minutes to edit it in Lightroom. This time I've got an image from Michael. So let me get the counter, the stopwatch going on here and see what I can do in 3 minutes. Right, let's go full screen on here into the develop module. And that's the photo. Right, this is a model image. White balance appears to be a bit off. It's very orangey on mine, so I'm just going to set the white balance to flash on here. That's a little bit more natural. We're losing a lot of detail on the back here, so I'm going to try and pull that back first of all and just see what's there. Yes, I know everything else is blown out. I just wanted to see what detail was available. So there is a little bit of detail there. So if I can pull that back and then just use the shadows. I just want enough to know that it's not disappearing into the background. Maybe the blacks. Yeah, but we've still got the highlights blown out. So if I bring those back in, that would work. There's just enough detail for the separation on there. I'm just wondering whether I want to tone down the vibrance on this one. That's working nicely. What I probably need to do, and I've got 1 minute 30 left, is I quite like doing something with the red lipstick on this. And maybe just bringing that up a lot higher and making it a little bit darker on there, which means then back over here, I can bring the vibrance down further, I think. I'm not sure. It is starting to say black and white to me, this one. I'm just going to browse the various profiles that we've got available in here, and let's have a look at the colour ones and see if there's anything that looks a little bit interesting. No, and I've only got 45 seconds left on this, so I'm going to come out of the there and stick with what I've got. I think it does need the vibrance back again on it. Do I want black and white or not with it? If I go black and white, that's interesting. It's a bit more of a film noir look to it. Yep, not quite sure on this one. I'm going to make a virtual copy of this. So virtual copy, where is it? I can't find my virtual copy. It's on here somewhere. Create virtual copy. Then with that, I can then Control Z back to the colour, so I should now have two versions. No, I've lost my virtual copy with it. Okay, that was the timer up. Less successful on this one, I'm afraid. Because I don't quite know the intent for the image, I'm not quite sure what to do with the edit on it. Black and white sort of works. Unfortunately, I lost the virtual copy. I wanted to sort of toggle between the two. Let me just do that now and create the virtual copy and black and white. So create virtual copy, and that I'm going to give it my black and white 3, which tends to be my standard. But because of that, I do need to bring those shadows up a fraction more, and those highlights down more to make it work on there. So right, those were the two that I've got, and I can sort of toggle between them. The colour and the black and white. Yeah, black and white or colour. I'm not sure on this one what I would go with. If I had a bit more time, I would probably do just a little bit of skin softening on here. Again, not much. I'll use my usual technique of coming down with the texture and then painting it back. K for the adjustment brush on there. Reset everything. Bring the texture back up. Bring a little bit of clarity up, and then flow all the way up on there. And then I would just start to paint that back in, particularly on the hat, because I want that detail in there, and particularly the lips and the eyes. A bit of the detail back down there. Right, so that's what I would do if I'd had the extra time, that little bit of skin softening on there. I think that does make a difference with it. I'm a little happier with that, and I probably would have cropped it as well. Maybe just bring it in slightly on that side and just slightly up at the bottom to somewhere like that. Yeah, I think that will probably be my crop on it as well. So again, thank you for submitting it, Michael. I'll make a few more comments later on in the video. So join me at the next section of the video. Okay, and we're back. Right, okay, let's move on quickly. Time's against us again. Why can I never get these things done in time? Image of the week, very quickly on this. I'm not going to talk much about it. Somebody asked me to do an image of the week. Here we are, Montmorency Falls in Canada. Thus the bear. I've published a video this week all about photographing waterfalls in Canada. Just to say about this one, I won't talk about it in great detail. If you want to know more, go watch that video. It's a third of a second, f20, ISO 50, with neutral density filters to be able to get that slow shutter speed, working on tripod on there. And that's the sort of thing that you can create with that. My microphone is picking up the movements of the mouse. Yeah, not surprised. Don't have an answer to that one, I'm afraid. Sorry, other than going to tie clip mic. I might try that next week, tie clip mic with it. This desk doesn't half make a noise. Right, moving on. But it's also picking up my keyboard as well. Showcase, yeah, I am still looking for people for this. It's 10 questions, you video yourself, chance to show off your work and promote yourself. The links to David are all in the description below this video. You can have a look at his work there. It goes out as part of the live stream. It also will go out as a standalone video eventually, and I provide a copy to the photographer concerned so they can also use it for for their own. So this week it's David, and it's part one of his. Let's see if this all plays. Oh, we haven't. Nope, that's not the right thing. Cancel that. Control Shift. Hello, welcome to my photographer showcase. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and where you are from.
I'm David. I run Luminite Photography as it stands at the moment. And by that I mean it's what I use to start myself up as a sort of a brand name until I figured out exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. That name will probably be changing over the next 12 months or so. I've only been shooting in earnest for the last 12 months. March last year was when I first picked the camera up properly. Prior to that, I'd used it mainly in my part-time day job, not really doing much with it other than I'm doing basic, but not really understanding, I suppose, would probably be the best way of describing it. I'm approaching 50 and I want something to do that hopefully will stop me working late nights at the weekend like I do currently.
What sort of photography do you do?
At the moment, I shot a lot of everything to start with, and over time I've narrowed it down to fitness and bodyscapes along with some portraits. The portraits I like, and I think everyone's got to have portraits in their bag as a professional photographer to some degree, just because I think everybody, just a good solid basic and understanding of light, I think. The bodyscapes is more my creative type. I like it from an arty point of view, but I can't or couldn't see myself making money from it or making enough money from it, shall we say. And by mistake, well, not by mistake, but by a little bit of luck, I ended up shooting a couple of fitness shoots, and they turned out better than I thought. And I thought, oh, well, let's shoot a couple more. Let me just see if it was me just getting, lucky. And I did a couple more, and I thought, I like this a lot. And with the amount of gyms there are normally, and fitness and health as a general rule of thumb, I thought, there could be a way of making some money out of this, as well as doing something that I really enjoy doing. And that's why I shot lots of everything. Shooting and taking pictures of everything is fun, but if the image doesn't give you that then as a job wise, you need to have that, I think, especially when you work for yourself. So I wanted to shoot other stuff, and the fitness came across, and I like that. I like that a lot. So I do a lot of fitness stuff. My studio in Oldham is kitted out with a shed load of fitness bits and pieces to do. I've done a couple of gym shoots on location, and I've done one outside as well. So I'm hoping to boost those numbers after lockdown. But yeah, fitness is as a business, more bodyscapes for a personal creative itch, and portraits because it's nice to capture family members, friends, and show an understanding of light to potential customers. I think it just helps.
Shoot with?
I shoot with the Panasonic G9, so that's micro four thirds. I decided to go with that because, as I mentioned, I used to shoot for my part-time day job, my part-time other job, and I had a micro four thirds, the Panasonic range. I think I've had every one, and I thought I understood it, so that if I needed to do any training on how to work stuff, I knew straight away how to do it. So I wasn't getting annoyed with the camera change and the system change. But I didn't. So what I did, I bought the G9 just before starting properly. And the idea is that hopefully I should keep that for a couple of years. I'm looking at maybe 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, and then suss what I want to do with it from there. I've got a selection of lenses, mainly primes. I've literally just picked up a 12 to 35 2.8, and I've got a 35 to 100 2.8 on its way. So they'll be my first zoom lenses. Proper zoom lenses. The primes I like. I get used to zooming with your feet, so to speak. But the studio, it's better to have a bit of space. And if I'm shooting on location, I want to be able to shoot in and out like in a gym and stuff. So that was that. So yeah, the Panasonic series, love it. Couldn't fault it for what I do. But yeah, love it.
Which are you, a professional, an enthusiast, or a happy snapper? And how long have you been doing photography?
Well, I think as I'm alluded to, I'm an enthusiast, borderline professional, i.e., I'm fairly decent. I like to think of myself as fairly decent. I know I've got lots of room to improve, and I've been improving sort of weekly from the last couple of months. The last couple of months of this year before lockdown, I could see a marked improvement in my lighting and understanding of it. Obviously, we've taken a hit on that. I've done a few portrait shots with the family during lockdown, so that's been fun and good. I just want to get back in the studio, start picking up again. But yeah, the idea is to be professional, is to make a living out of this. It's what I want to do. It's why when I'm doing it, I'm always looking at the lights and how they work, not so much at the model. With some of them, I'm a bit more comfortable posing models now. Not great with them, I'll be honest, but I'm a lot better, and the lighting is more important for me at this precise moment.
Can you show us the most recent image that you've been working on?
Okay, as mentioned, I've done a couple of portraits, and I've done both of these while in lockdown. The first one is my wife. We did a bit of a photo shoot down the studio, and I like this one. It's a bit of a fun, head in the dark kind of thing. Captured when she was just sticking her tongue out at me because I was trying to make her smile or laugh, and she just stuck her tongue out. I like it. I really like it, and I like black and white anyway. So it was that. And the other one is a photographer who uses my studio from time to time called Alan A. Andrew. Some of you may know. I know he's been around on the circuit, lots of groups and stuff. And he's a real good character to photograph with a beard and moustache and stuff. And he came in a couple of days ago actually, and we did this because he was looking at some new equipment that I'd had come in, and we just wanted to have a meet up and just have a chat. Obviously retaining the 2 meters, but it's quite easy to do at my studio, so that wasn't really a big issue. We weren't shooting anyone, we were just coming in and having a coffee and, you know, releasing the stress of being locked down. So that was fun. So we stood in there for a camera for a bit, and that was great. So that's what that is. And I really like them both. The black and white is more simple and sort of less depth, and the more details in Alan's and the way I captured it was for me. One of my favourite portrait shots I took before was of Alan. It must be about 12 months ago. Yeah, so now I've updated my picture of Alan. I'm really pleased with it.
If you had to give just one piece of advice to a new photographer, what would it be?
One piece of advice. Practice, 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 practice. I'm sure everybody says this, and it's one of the things when I started looking at YouTube and bits and pieces for ideas and stuff, it's practice. Once you've got your camera, once you've got your card and a lens, and you can take pictures, it doesn't cost you anything. So take pictures, look at them, compare the lighting, learn the lighting. It took a while for me to understand the lighting with the soft and the hard lighting. Unless you have complete opposite ends in front of you, and then you have various degrees in front of you, it takes a while to understand. And, but practicing, it just costs time. And if you can't put time in, then what's the point? But practice, take pictures, learn what the main settings do, the aperture, the settings, the speed, and the ISO. Learn what each of them do, because they all let in light and block light, but they have other features, and he's learning those things. And take one picture, just changing one of those things. Take 10 pictures of the same thing, just changing one thing, like the aperture, and just see how it makes the image different, because it doesn't cost anything. We're so lucky with that. Once you've invested in your camera, you get a kit lens and just get a cheap card, memory card, and just take pictures and understand what the things do. It's free. I couldn't stress that enough. It's just practice.
We're going to leave this interview at this point, and we will continue it in next week's live stream. So back to me in the studio. Okay, so moving on very quickly. We've overrun again. Fail again. Right, 3-minute challenge. Let's provide Michael with a little bit of feedback on his image. So first of all, I'm going to play in Rick's feedback, and then I'll make a few comments as well.
Okay, so going back to this image, a little bit of feedback for you, Michael. Thank you very much for sending these images in, by the way. Reason why, as well, I went black and white. If we take it back to colour, I just feel that this warm tone here, I don't know, it just kind of doesn't make a whole ton of sense. I'd rather see a separation light here, and I think black and white hides that warm tone nicely and shows the gradient across the background a little better. I would have liked some separation back here because the hat does tend to get lost. Nature of the beast, the light's coming from this side, so this is the shadow side. You could push in a little bit of a reflector to deal with that, have a slight hint of light on the background to deal with it as well. There. Now, if we look at the composition of this, if I press the right button, it's nicely balanced. I don't mind how close it is to the top. It could potentially cause you problems if you were doing some kind of specific distribution or print work with the image. It might kind of cause a problem for you there, although cropping into a hat, unless the image is about the hat, doesn't really matter, quite frankly, anyway. But nice balanced composition. I do like the framing. Now, most people with headshots or headshot type images, they will tell you not to face the shoulders towards. Rules are supposed to be broken. That being said, I do think with the pose, placing the arms in a little bit of a different position rather than down straight by her sides and elbows close in would have worked better, because it would have thinned the arms out and created a different shape of the shoulders and of course the arms as well, which can be worth doing just to improve things. I don't mind the shoulderless top at all, the shadow play across there whatsoever. Now, I don't know again how this was shot, where it was shot, whether it was a group event, whether it was a one-to-one shoot, but it looks like she's been caught in a moment which she was seeming a little bit unsure. It kind of seems a bit of an in-between moment, which sometimes it can be good and you can get a golden one, but there's a little bit of tension in the lips, so maybe just spending a little bit of time just to coach into a certain expression or mood would improve the images. Ultimately, it depends on what you're going for. But I do like the eye contact on this one. You've got good light in the eyes. The light hasn't been taken too far up, so it will be hitting the hat and not getting anything under here. Yes, the eyes are darker. This zone here is darker than the face here. It's the nature of such a directional source that's used, but I don't mind it at all. It works really well. Well composed, a great shot. I don't know whether you need to check your sensor or have them cleaned, because there's a couple of marks that are showing up. That may potentially be marks on the wall, yeah, but there was something that I removed before, just an FYI. You do tend to see those when you shoot at f11, f8, stop down. That's just the nature of the beast. But overall, a nice image. Thank you very much for sending it in, and we will hand over back to Ian.
Okay, right, my few comments about this. As ever, Rick seems to steal my thunder on the critiquing, which I suppose is no bad thing, because you hear plenty from me in I've just got a couple of things I want to share on this. So I'm going to go over to Lightroom to do this, and there we go. Now I'm going to pull up the image that Michael edited on here and look at that, because Michael has specifically asked for feedback on his particular edit, because he's had feedback from somebody else and wants to compare what I have to say with what they said. The one thing I can guarantee, Michael, is that I will probably say things different to what others have said, because if you put 3 photographers in the room, you'll get 4 opinions, guaranteed. The main thing that I don't like about this, I have to, well, let me do critiquing properly. I'd say I do like the lighting generally. I like the film noir look that you've come up with on it. I know it was a film noir night. But the one thing for me that's letting it down is the disappearing into the background. And I would like to see, why is it when I do that I lose the display? I'd like to see more lighting behind. If I was lighting it, I would definitely want a rim light in here. You probably all know by now, I'm a big fan of rim lighting. I use it a lot in my photography with models, just that little bit of separation to separate the subject from the background. And if I wasn't doing that, I would probably put a low intensity light on the background just to bring that up just enough so that we could see this edge to the hat. The hat appears to be a significant part of the image, so to actually lose most of it into the shadow seems to be a bit of a waste for me. The other comment I was going to make, Rick's already beaten me to it, is the expression on there. It's neither one thing nor the other on it. I would like to see something a little bit more characterful with it, either a smile or a little bit more teasing. It just looks like a neutral expression to me, so it's not doing anything for me, put it that way. On there, so those are my main things. Black and white or colour, I'm still undecided, on that. I think colour has some merits as well. So those are my thoughts. I don't know how that stacks up with what else you've been told. So moving along, right, we've got a few comments in here. Was that the visit that kicked off on Facebook? I don't understand that. One photographer picked up on the gap in the model's hair over her right eye. Didn't spot that. I sometimes miss those sort of things. We were using the Pixar Pro rice bowl with a Pica 200 on its own. Right, yeah, okay. Yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Very, very limited comments on that. So carrying on with Q&A live, I haven't seen any new questions come into chat. Gary did qualify what he was talking about with the focus stacking. Rick also mentioned some other software for it, which without scrolling back through the chat, I can't remember what it was. On there, where's Rick's comment? Yeah, no, can't spot it at the moment. But yeah, you've probably already seen that in the chat. I will do a section on focus stacking in a later live stream. I might pre-record how to capture the images. I noticed, Gary, you haven't actually done any a shoot yet. The thing to make sure you've got is focusing rails for it. Which you will need to be able to do a decent focus stack if you've got a small macro object that you want to do that on. So think about that. Helicon Focus was the bit of software. Rick's just added it back to the chat on there. So I don't think I've got anything else in chat, which leaves me with a wrap up to do on here. So really just thanks to everyone for watching. I still haven't managed to keep this under the hour, sorry. Special thanks to David for providing the first part of the photographer showcase. Next week we look further into his work and he shares some of his favorite images with us, so please tune back in for that. Thanks to Rick for doing the 3-minute challenges. I don't thank Rick enough for all the support that he gives to these live streams. Not only spending his time doing the 3-minute edits, it's actually his microphone that I'm using to do these, and it's sort of been living here for well, I think this is week 11 now, so it's been living here 11 weeks. If you want it back, Rick, do let me know. You know where to get it on that. So thanks very much for Rick for that, and thanks to Michael for sending in the image. It's an interesting one to look at on there, and despite me being a little bit critical, I do like the image. The usual 3 things to finish with: subscribe if you haven't already, comment. It really does help. Find something to comment about, and like. All those will help raise my profile because interaction helps the YouTube algorithm. And next time we're going to look at the second part of the photographer's showcase. And we may or may not do a part 2 on image wrangling because I've done it with Lightroom. Do people want me to do that with something like Darktable, which is an entirely free bit of software, which should be able to do exactly the same thing? I don't know. Is that overkill? Let me know in the comments or in the feedback on that. If you not interested in that, I will find something else to put in next week instead. We may or may not have a 3-minute edit. I think I saw an email pop in along the lines of somebody sending me or offering to send me some images for a 3-minute edit. So we may have one next week. We will have Q&A. So let me have your photos. So until then, thanks for watching, folks, and keep making great photos. Okay, so I just need to record an alternative ending now for the cut down version. If anyone's still watching, that's what's about to happen. Thanks for watching this cut down version of In Studio Live. The full version is still to be found on my Academy website, which costs just £6 a month or £60 a year. Lots of resources there. I mention it every time, but do take a look at that. And the cut down versions will remain on here indefinitely. So thanks for watching, folks, and keep making great photos. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Over here is a playlist of videos similar to this one, and here is a video I think you will like, whereas here is a video YouTube thinks you will like. Until next time, keep making great photos. Bye for now.